June 15th is recognized as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day every year. On this one-on-one, we focus specifically on financial abuse and talk to some of the key players who are trying their best to deal with the issue, which affects many seniors. A very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord, and my first guest is the Acting Senior Welfare Officer at the National Assistance Board, Ms. Kayrene Heallis. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. Now, the NAB is the government agency responsible for looking after the needs of older Barbadians. Let's put it in context. As Senior Welfare Officer, what does your role entail?
Well, at the National Assistance Board, I manage the social welfare section. Myself and two other officers, we are responsible for all case management, whether it is elder abuse, whether we are referring persons to welfare, whether we referring persons to NDU. That's our role. And our role also is to work with the home care section. And we also provide support to some of the recipients there in case they need anything. So we have, it's a lot of work sometimes, but we do manage because we have it divided into zones. And overall, we manage at least 30 to 40 cases a month, whether it's telephone support, whether it's going out there and going in the community and to see what's going on, whether it's housing. With Hurricane Elsa, we did a lot of that work as well, with support to the welfare department in assessing the houses that were destroyed or partially destroyed. So, and then our cases then will come back and we have case conferences with the director or the assistant director just to make sure that we're going in the right vein, we are referring to the correct agencies, because even though we are social workers, sometimes we still need that support from our supervisors.
In terms of the whole issue of financial abuse, how is that triggered in terms of the NAB's response? Does a member of the public call and say, well, I think that this older person may be taken advantage of by somebody?
Some persons call, some persons visit. And the calls, sometimes we just have to sift through, what should I say? We sift through what is actually real, what is the reality of it. Because we have to remember that some persons, for want of a better word, are kind of gypsy in other people's business. But then to get a proper assessment, to understand what is going on with the client, we go out there in the community. So we get the calls, we get persons walking in, we get referrals from other agencies, we get referrals from the Barbados Police Service, we get referrals from the Environmental Department. So, yeah.
When you say you get referrals from the police service, the police call you and tell you to go and investigate?
We usually go with them, especially the officers from the community.
Community officers.
They usually are the ones to call, and we will go out with them, myself or one of the other two officers, to investigate what is going on out there with the elderly. When we get there, sometimes it is that the persons actually move into the old person's house. They take over their finances. So we look at that as power and control over the person's house, their land, their money, their bank account. So I think even the NIS checks, they go change them, come back. So when we speak about financial abuse, we have to understand that in the aging process, some of the elderly, they forget. And persons out there take advantage of that, which is really, really saddening at times.
Okay, so let's paint the scenario. You've gotten the call, or the person came in and made the report, or the police made the referral. You go with the officer. What happens next?
We try to understand what is going on first. So we usually have an interview with the elderly person as long as they can still speak for themselves. Because when we remember the aging process, some of these elderly persons may have lost their memory. This is where the advantage will be taken. If that cannot happen, we would then speak to a neighbor, because sometimes it's usually neighbor that call.
Right.
We will speak to the neighbor and we will try our best to get hold of family members, because some of the family members would have gone overseas for a long time, and the neighbor will be the caregiver, and they will have the numbers for the persons overseas. We get in touch with them and we would explain to them what we found, what were the allegations, because they're not always true in some instances. So we link with the family members and we try to get them at times to, come and not take over. Let me use it for a better word. Come and manage the finances for the elderly persons, whether it's opening a bank account at the credit union, and deeming themselves trustworthy then to manage the elderly's money. It is not always the case, because at times the family members are the persons who are taking advantage of the elderly. So that one proves kind of difficult at times. And in cases where the elderly can speak for themselves, they will tell us they are okay. This person can continue managing my money, even though when they change the checks, we are not seeing any food in the house. We are not seeing any bills paid. All the bills are in arrears. So that leads to something else now, where we would then have to make referrals to the welfare department to have the arrears paid.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's say, for instance, you go out to investigate a case, and there's actually some person living with the elderly person. How do you go about that?
We go about that. We kind of tiptoe around it at times, because let's say they were marked territory. The whole people mark territory. So we go knock, we introduce ourselves. They will ask us sometimes, what you doing about here? Who you? Where you come from? Because they don't want another person in there to see what is going on. And in that instance, then we would either probably involve the Barbados Police Service at this point in time, or we will go discuss the case and we will get guidance on how to go about it. But I find that there's a trend in Barbados where persons who are not relatives to the elderly move into the elderly's house. The elderly person would trust them so much that they would give them PIN number, bank card, right away to change checks, that kind of thing. So when we go then, it comes back then to the point where they don't want us there, because they're figuring that we are coming to take the finances or the household income from them, because no matter how or what we say, they are seeing it as management of the finances. In some cases, as I said before, the elderly will say, I'm quite comfortable, and everybody has a right to self-determination in social work terms. So it's kind of troubling at times, and we have to do a lot of follow-up to find out how they're going, how they're getting on.
What teeth does the NAB have, in the sense that you go, this person is living with this elderly person, they're not a relative, as you said, it seems to be a trend that you're seeing. The older person is saying, I'm comfortable with this person in the house, but you can see they're being taken advantage of. Can the NAB do anything?
At this point, let me say, our hands are kind of tied, because what can we do? That's a question that I always ask. What can we do? Because the elderly folk, the ones that can speak, will say, okay, I'm fine. But then there's a case then where you have some who are immobile, who are on their beds. We can't do anything about that. So our hands are tied in the sense that we can't move forward and we can't move backwards. So it kind of stagnates the process.
Yeah, but it's blatant. As you said,
Yes,
you've gone
it's
into
blatant.
the house, the bills are in arrears, there's no food in the cupboard. You can't let the person stay
Well,
like that.
with the cooperation of the person living in the house, at times, we can see how much the bills are. We can make that referral. And in some cases, we find family members who can assist. Sometimes we have to get family members who from overseas to come in because the elderly person don't have any person here living to see after the person's finances, get this person out the house. We can also recommend home care so that somebody else will be coming into the house. I know that we have the community elder care program, so we have 2 programs running parallel that can offer assistance. And if we want to stretch it further to ensure that the person doesn't come back, we can also ask the community police officers to pass through every now and then to see what's happening. So at times also we would, with the assistance of the family members, if the person can't do it themselves, we will ask them to set up a bank account. Let your money come straight from NAS to the bank or from the credit union, so that the person will have these checks in their hands and just go change them, come back. And when you step into the house, you don't see any food. Even though the person's pension is over $1,000, my question always, what are you doing with the person's money? We are not seeing any doctor bills. You're not taking them to the doctor. What are you doing with the money? So it's a trend that I'm seeing, and it's a saddening trend, but it's happening.
How concerned are you?
What should I say? As a social worker, I'm really concerned because the elderly is how there are 4 parents. I believe we should respect them. But everybody does not have that wherewithal to do that. And it saddens me in the fact that I think that more should be done where financial abuse is concerned. The fact that some of the elderly does not have control at times and persons take away that control from them, it's really heartbreaking at times to see it, especially, again, when cases are concerned. You go to the house, the person is getting welfare, the welfare national assistance. There's not much money, but at least it can still give them a pot of soup. It can still give them something to eat. It can still assist with the bills. If welfare is paying the light and the water, food is the main concern. But yet, still persons will take this little bit of money and do for themselves and not for the elderly person. If you really get down to the heart of it, it is really, really heartbreaking to me.
And those involved in the community elder care program, like the home help, they also would see a lot when they go to assist these elderly persons as well.
Yes, they do. And at times, well, most of the time, they would either bring the plight of the person to the welfare section, or they would take it to their supervisor or to the coordinator of the program or to the assistant director, and then it would filter down to us to go and do the assessment and see what's actually going on out there. But they do see a lot and they do report these cases.
And from where you sit, the NAB is trying to deal with the issue of financial abuse.
Very much so, very much so. We make, at this point, we observe the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. We are trying to educate the public, on what to look for where financial abuse is concerned.
What should they look for?
What should they look for? I think I'll walk into that one. What should they look for? They should look for persons in the community that don't belong there. Because if you walk into a community and this person is living alone, we have to remember those are the ones that are targeted, the ones who are living alone. And this person don't belong in the community. They're not a niece, they're not a nephew. What are they doing there? What are they doing there? You could, as a community, you can go ask a question. You can actually refer the case. Let's go and find out, interview the person, find out what's going on out there. Because, as I said, not too long, the elderly, let me mention it, the ones who live in alone are the ones that we find are targeted by these persons. I can remember one instance I had. This gentleman just moved into the old person's house, and I got the call. I said, this is the second time I have gotten this call. Explain to me who you are, where you come from. He wasn't too pleased about it, so I went back, and my supervisor and myself went again. That was for support in case, anything had happened. And I said to him again, what are you doing here? You're not family. He used to assist with the husband, and he is living there. I said, but the husband has died, so you should have moved on. But he was there living in the house, and we've seen a lot of that. They just target the elderly who are living alone.
What do you want Barbadians to know in terms of, I know you explained what they should look for, but about the work that the NAB is doing in this regard?
Know that they can call us, the NAB, they can call us. They can let us know what they're seeing out there in the community. We will go and investigate. If there's a referral to be made, we can do that. Just look out for these persons, the elderly who are living alone. Know that they're there. Sometimes they don't have any support. They don't have family here, but they will know these persons. And if they see anything strange, they can call the Barbados Police Service as well, so that it can, we can go and see what's going on out there, in case it is a matter that you're not family. So at least explain to us, how did you get living here? What is going on? And to the elderly persons, no. If you see a stranger, they may be lonely, they may need some social interaction, but please keep your banking affairs, credit cards, ATM cards, your PIN numbers. Keep them safe. Don't give them to any and everybody, because sometimes it's a challenge getting them back from these persons. Don't give away your ID either, because many times we go and we say, so what's your ID number? And they be searching for the ID, and they say, oh, so-and-so have it. And we'll be like, who is this person? And then we will get the contact numbers, and we will phone them. They don't want to give us the ID number either. Don't give away your personal information to persons that you are not au fait with. As simple as that. Yeah.
Ms. Heallis, thank you so much for talking to us. We really appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
That was Ms. Kayrene Heallis, the Acting Senior Welfare Officer at the National Assistance Board. When we return, we speak with another critical player in fighting financial abuse against the elderly, the National Insurance Scheme. Stay with us.
Everything comes at a cost. And these days, no one profits from the loss, like when a child is forced to trade school day socialization for screen time study, when a disease decides to disrupt our daily routine, and suddenly every one of us is coming undone, losing loved ones' lives and livelihoods, breath and breadwinners, families and festivals and freedoms. God, we feel like it's too much hassle to be human. We will always remember the years the earth spun quieter, but Mother Nature showed us how the simple act of standing still can wage war on an illness. So may we remember how to be our own army, how it takes cooperation for a community to build immunity, how unity can nurse us back to normalcy. Why stop at one family when we could save all?
Hi, I'm Dr. Adana Grandison, and I'm here to give you a few tips on how to accurately and safely take your blood pressure readings at home. Before taking your measurement, sit in a calm, warm environment. Don't perform any exercise in the preceding 1 hour. No coffee, food, smoking, or even sinus medication in the preceding hour to taking that blood pressure reading. Empty your bladder and bowel. Most readings that are taken at home should be below or at 135 on 85 millimeters of mercury for uncomplicated hypertension. Lower home blood pressure targets might be advisable in persons who have the following conditions: diabetes, chronic renal disease, or coronary heart disease. If several readings are above 140 on 90 millimeters of mercury, make an appointment with your physician immediately. Ensure to take your readings at the same time every day. We advise 2 readings in the morning and 2 readings in the evening, initially to profile yourself, taken 1 to 2 minutes apart. However, once you have established a baseline, you can choose a time suitable to your schedule where you can monitor your blood pressure readings.
Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another, get vibration. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function. Remove outdoor objects. Make sure that you went to the ATM. Stock up with water. Make sure you clean the guttering, Lord. What about clean food? Make sure you got some stock up in your room. Make sure you prop up the paling and tie down the roof. Let me start to prepare real soon. Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another, get vibration. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function.
Welcome back, and I'm joined now by the Assistant Director of Benefits at the National Insurance Scheme, Ms. Norma King Brathwaite. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Now, the Benefits Department deals with pensions, survivors' benefits, grants, etc. Now, we're focusing on the elderly, so let's look at pensions. Take me through the process of processing pension claims.
Okay. Well, as you approach pensionable age, because we're assuming that during this period of time, you would have been checking to ensure that your contributions are being paid. You will also have written for access to our portal so that you can view and ensure that your contributions are being recorded. As you approach pensionable age, you will submit your applications 3 months prior to pensionable age with all the relevant documents under the legislation. When that information becomes available, the claim is processed, and as indicated on your application, we will send your pension either to a financial institution, or we will send it in the form of a check.
Is the elderly taking advantage of the direct deposit?
Yes, some of the elderly are taking. There are persons that are now coming into the scheme of things, persons who are now retiring that would be pushed towards the lodgements, but there are obviously those persons who will prefer to have a physical check for cashing.
Because they want to cash it at the post office, etc.
Correct.
Now, I've made the application. I've started getting my pension checks. However, or my direct deposits made to the account. But I want to make a change now, and I want that check or that money paid to a third party. What happens there?
Well, you can visit our institution and indicate such. There are forms there for that purpose where you can complete and say what you would like your funds sent to a particular individual. You can also write to the director and indicate that this is your wish, you would like it paid to a person, but of course you must provide that person's information, NIS number, banking information if you want it deposited, or in the form of a check where the person appears on the check as an alternative payee. You will provide that information and the change will be made.
What happens if this pensioner comes in, the body language is off? I know we're not in a position to judge others, but you can clearly see that this person is coming in and they're doing this under duress. What happens?
Well, in cases like that, the person can physically come to the department, or you can find cases where family members come in and indicate, well, such and such is not of sound mind. And as a result, they're asking if the funds can be either sent to a third party or such. So in cases like that, if there is a legal document, that document is presented to the director. It is viewed to ensure it's a valid document, and the change can be made based on that legal document. But if no legal document exists, there is an option under Regulation 16.1 of the National Insurance and Social Security Regulations, Claims and Payments, 1984, where the director has the board has the right, to appoint an alternative payee to act on that person's behalf. It has to be within certain parameters.
No, you're saying if the person is of unsound mind. However, this is a case where the person is okay, but still the officer dealing with the client has some reservations, some red flags have been raised. What does the NIS do then?
Well, we can ask for a report from the doctor indicating that the person is of sound mind, or if the person is not of sound mind, of course, that change would not be made until we can have a person appointed to act on that person's behalf.
Now, once a case of suspected fraud is detected, or how do you go about detecting a case of fraud?
All right, we can have persons calling in to indicate that they are seeing things in the community, or they're seeing that a particular elderly person who is supposed to be receiving a pension is not benefiting from their pension. And we can have cases in point where it is determined that the person can, because as you know, as you age, you're susceptible to things like dementia, Alzheimer's, frailty, and communicable diseases, and also other diseases associated with old age. So as a result, we would know that persons that are in this category would be susceptible to cases of relying on family and friends, cases of possible abuse, or mismanagement of financial funds. So in cases like that, as I said, it is brought to our attention if there is a legal document that is in existence. That legal document stating that this person is appointed to act on the person's behalf. That legal document is used to have the funds transferred to that representative. If no such document exists, but there's consensus among the family members that the funds should be paid to a particular party, those funds on the Regulation 16.1, a document is prepared, we ask for certain documentation, something from a doctor stating that the person is not of sound mind. We get letters from the person acting as the representative to be appointed, as well as accompanying documents from a spouse or family members or children indicating that those funds, they're in agreement that party A should receive those monies on behalf of the person. If there's a family dispute, of course, the director is in no position because there's a level of uncertainty. So as a result of those particular cases, we will ask for legal documentation. And of course, that legal documentation will take precedence over the legislation 16.1. So once that legal document is presented, then we are able to act to ensure that the pensioner benefits. We have at least 5 cases being presented to the board monthly of persons who would like to be appointed under Regulation 16.1. And that happens every month.
And when you said be appointed?
This means that there's no legal document, there's consensus among the family members that party A should receive the funds on behalf of the pensioner, and as a result, the relevant documents are submitted and the board appoints that person to act on that person's behalf. Being mindful of the fact that at any later stage, any legal document coming in will take precedence over the legislation, and a change then will be made based on that legal document.
Okay, what if we've gone through the entire process? You have the legal documentation, you have the right to pay to this third party, but then it is observed or recognized that this third party is not passing on the benefits to this old person. Does the NIS stop those payments?
Well, we can stop the payments and investigate, but here is where we need, for instance, a third organization in place. Some public institution or agency that the NIS can say, okay, we've received such a case, and we would like you to assist to ensure that the pensioner benefits from this pension. In which case then there is a case of where that particular agency reports on how the funds are being spent, and there is an audit to show that the pensioner is indeed benefiting from its funds. Right now, the NIS is limited in what it can do as it relates to investigating these cases. Cases of fraud are usually referred to our police for investigation, but we are limited in what we can do. And we are only limited to the legislation 16.1 of the National Insurance Act legislation.
Is the NIS seeing an increase in financial fraud against the elderly?
What I can say right now is that over the last 3 years, we've had 30 reported cases, only 30 reported cases.
30?
Yes, 30.
Okay.
As I said, it has to be brought to our attention for us to do the investigation, but there are only 30 cases.
From where you sit, what concerns you when it comes to financial fraud against the elderly, or abuse rather?
Well, the concern is, our main aim is to ensure that your funds are available to you in your golden years. And if the funds aren't benefiting the pensioner, that is a concern to us, but of course, we are limited in what we can do. So it's to ensure that the necessary, if possible, procedures are put in place at an early stage when you are of sound mind to say, well, as I gradually age, I would like Party A, Party B to be able to look after my affairs. And if something like that can be put in place, fine. But as I said, we need an agency that will be able to be accountable to ensure that as these cases are reported, we can refer them for further investigation.
And is that a conversation your officers have when the pensioners first come to apply for their pensions to say, well, look, you need to put these things in place if further down the road you should have some challenges?
No, we don't guide the pensioners in what to do as it relates to that. But as I said, we just guide them under the legislation because, as I said, we're confined under legislation to provide them with a benefit once they've contributed to us. And we ensure that those necessary documentations or guidance is provided as it relates to processing. But we do not provide guidance in that area, no.
Ms. Brathwaite, thank you so much for taking the time out to explain the role of the NIS and ensuring that our seniors get what is due to them.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. That was Ms. Norma Brathwaite, the Assistant Director of Benefits at the National Insurance Scheme. And when we return, we speak with another key partner in the fight against financial abuse against our elderly. Stay with us.
Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another against depression. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function. Remove outdoor objects. Make sure that you went to the ATM. Stock up with water. Make sure you clean the guttering lot. What about canned food? Make sure you got some stock up in your room. Make sure you prop up the paling and tie down the roof. Let me start to prepare real soon. Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another against depression. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ingrid Burrows, and I'm going to give you some tips on managing your hypertension. The first thing you should do is to decrease your salt intake. You should keep your salt intake to less than 1 gram a day. This is equivalent to about 1 teaspoon of salt every day. Another thing you should do is to ensure that you're getting enough physical activity. You should aim for 150 minutes of aerobic exercise every week of moderate intensity. For example, brisk walking, light jogging, swimming, or running. This equates to half an hour of exercise 5 days a week. You also want to increase your intake of fresh fruits and vegetables. It is advised that you eat 5 servings of fruit and vegetable every day. And the last thing you can do is monitor your blood pressure at home with a digital machine. This is very important as some patients have elevated blood pressures while in the doctor's office while having normal blood pressures at home. This is called white coat hypertension. Also, if you're taking medication for your hypertension and you notice any changes in your blood pressure, you can call your doctor and he or she can adjust your medications to suit. If your readings are too high or too low, you can inform your doctor and he or she can adjust your medications appropriately. I hope these tips have been helpful.
And welcome back. Now, we can't possibly discuss anything to do with finances and leave out financial institutions. Joining me now is the Director of Retail Banking Channels at CIBC FirstCaribbean International Bank, Miss Michelle Whitelaw. Miss Whitelaw, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
You're welcome. Now, we spoke earlier with the NAB, where the welfare officer goes out to investigate reports of financial abuse. We also spoke to the NIS, which distributes the pension checks. Now, the bank cashes those pension checks in many instances. We know that older persons believe in coming into the bank and making sure they stand in front of a teller to get their money, as opposed to using the ATMs, even though they do use the ATMs. Let's look at some of the trends involving older persons in terms of their patterns of behavior using the bank.
Yes, well, Lisa, certainly the comment that you made around the elderly coming into the bank, that is very, very true. We usually have, I'll have to say a little smile amongst ourselves, because for some of them, it's like a little outing.
Yes.
We've found that over the years, they come in to see their favorite CSR or their favorite customer service officer, just to have a conversation. But we know during COVID, we've just had to, really look at things differently, because this population, is one of the most vulnerable population because of COVID, during COVID. And it is our right to really try to protect them. And, many conversations have been around trying to get them to use the other channels instead of coming into the bank. But that has been difficult. The trend, however, is that we've started to see, a little improvement among some of them who are willing to take on the technology. And one of the things that we do as a financial institution is certainly try to hold their hands and help them, with navigating technology on a whole.
Let's look at the use of the ATMs. We know that you have cameras inside of every ATM. Is it a case where the bank monitors the usage by that older person? Let's say this older person who's been a customer for more than 20, 30 years. They come into the bank, that they tend to withdraw X amount. But as of late, they've been withdrawing excessive amounts, or they've been coming with someone.
Yes, certainly we look for, again, trends with the elderly customer coming into the bank. We do see instances where, yes, you may see Granny comes in maybe once a month, and then all of a sudden Granny starts coming in every week. And when she comes in once a month, she may withdraw $3,000. And that, we know now, okay, that's
a red
enough to
flag.
keep her. No, that might be enough to keep Granny for 2 months. But all of a sudden now, you're drawing 3, you're drawing 4. We're not going to let you get that far. We have started to train our CSRs and CSOs even more to be present with the customer when they come in. So look at their transactions, see if it's normal. And if it is not normal, then you have to escalate. Escalate meaning now, let's have a conversation with your leaders. Let's talk about it. And we will provide the guidance as to where we move from there. In some of those instances, what we do, we would try to engage the customer. When I say try, sometimes they're coming with persons who they may say, well, this is my son. This is my, family member. And they're reluctant in moving away. So sometimes you have to use a little bit more coercion to say, look, come, we know this is your transaction, we just want to talk to you about it. And we would try to move those persons away and have that conversation. Sometimes in those cases, we realize that that person is really there under duress. And that family member has discovered that maybe they have funds and they're trying now themselves to have access to the funds. In some instances, we have to go as far through our discussion with that customer to say, look, do you have any other family members? Or we may even go further and say that we're going to have to involve the police because clearly something is happening here. We still have to be careful in doing those things and to strike the balance, because we wouldn't want that, as a financial institution, they say, well, look, we know ourselves now kind of have the customer under duress. You don't want to give me my money and all of that. So it's conversations. We try to have a lot of dialogue when we notice those kind of events happening.
No, you're talking about the person coming into the bank with a family member or relative.
Yes.
However, what happens when the ATM card gets into a relative's hands? They're not coming into the bank. They have access to the PIN number. But like I said, I know that every ATM has cameras. Do you monitor that?
Right. So no, we're not going to monitor like that. The monitoring really helps us in the event that there is let's say the customer brings a concern to our attention and they say, look, I have this account and now I'm seeing this money disappearing from my account. What the cameras allow us to do is to go back and review and see what might have happened there.
And that's what I meant.
Yes.
That's what I meant.
Yes. So certainly, that's what the cameras help us to do. If an incident is brought to our attention, we go back and we review and we're able to see who's the person, that might be coming to use the card. One of the things that we always advise our customers is never to give out that PIN number. Don't write it down. And I know we're going to say, is the elderly, how are they going to remember? But you'd be surprised to see that some of them, they would use particular numbers that, that is easy for them to hold on to. But we say, even though it is easy for you to hold on to, make sure it is not that easy that, a family member could take hold of it. So don't use birthdays, don't use anniversaries, those types of things that are, other
those
persons
are the things
would
that
have.
are easy to remember.
Yes, but they are the very things that, persons would take advantage of. One of the other things that we do see also relative to the PIN numbers, and, as I said, even though we say don't give it out, you would find that, someone, they've found trust in maybe a family member and they decide this one-off, look, I can't really go to the bank. Here's my PIN, could you go and withdraw $500 from me or whatever? And they do it that one time and then they put the card back where it should go. And then all of a sudden, the temptation is so great that person then continues withdrawing until, what we try to do is to send statements, at least to the elderly. We try to send statements twice a year. So then they see their statement and they're like, but where did all my money go? And that's when it's then brought to our attention in some of those instances. And we start our investigations from there. And like I said, most of the times in those instances, it is a family member or a trusted relative.
Okay, so we're going to avoid all the things that would raise red flags and we're going to do this thing proper now. I'm going to come in and put a relative on the account as a joint account holder with me. Okay.
So there again, we're going to ask you some questions. How come you're putting this person on the account? Who is this individual? One of the things that we also have to make sure that the owner of the account, that you are of sound mind. So we'll ask relative questions again, same thing. Why are you here? Do you know where you are? There may be things that will come up that will cause us then to, or I would say our antennas, our financial antennas go up in the air. And we say, look, something is not right here. And you recognize that this person may be suffering from, Alzheimer's or early dementia. Not saying that we are, medical physicians, but there are red flags that we would look for. In that instance, what we do is, if there is a family member, if it's a family member that's with them, we would advise, look, we can't move any further because of what we are seeing here. And we advise that you take the person to your physician and let us have, a letter stating the mental health of that person.
The bank
Are
makes
they
that
able?
recommendation?
Yes. Are they able, to do business? Because we would not move forward from there if we see those red flags. A joint account is, once you put that person on there, that person has
have access.
just as
Yep.
much authority as you do to withdraw the funds. But one of the things that we also recommend, if you know that you are just putting a family member on there to, in case of
Something
emergency, if
happens.
something happens, draft a letter to us stating that this person is only on the account to, in cases of emergency. I'm not saying that it will bear a lot of weight, but at least should something happen, we do have documentation on there to say, look, this is what this was the request of the customer. This is what they really wanted this account for. So, if that elderly person decides, look, I'm going to prosecute here. I can't, this was never, to occur like this, then we are able to help them because you say, but look, yeah, you did produce this document. So we have this here for you.
And then there's also the whole issue of power of attorney.
Yes. Power of attorney again, now, yes, that also gives access once it is drafted that way to say that, you have access to do everything on my account. Again, with power of attorneys, we ensure that the customer, again, is also sound of mind. A power of attorney is null and void. You can't present a power of attorney if that person is not of sound mind. We can move no further with it. So again, we go through the same process of asking the relevant questions, to see how that person is responding. What I would say in some instances is that you would see family members bringing in a power of attorney sometimes without the individual. So what we do in instance like that is we make sure we would reach out to the individual to try to understand, what is happening, what is this person, why have you sent them to do this for you? Again, to make sure that that person actually exists and that they're also of sound mind. Now, I mentioned, you will hear me mention a lot about being of sound mind. There is a process around that, and I know sometimes it does make family members angry, especially if they're coming to the bank and they may be a part of an account and they want to take funds off. The Mentally Incapacitated Act, what that does, it states that you as an individual, if you're not able to conduct business. So a representative should be appointed. That person goes to the court. That is a court-appointed representative who literally comes in then, and that document is drawn up to say that you have the authority to conduct transactions on, this person's account. And you will find that in some of those documents, they're very specific. They would say you're able to do A, B, C, D, E, and no more. So we have to make sure that we are following what is written on those documents. So like I said, that also overrules the power of attorney. Power of attorney does not come into play if that person is not of sound mind.
There are also scams against the elderly with distress messages being sent to them and saying, I need assistance, I need this amount of money. How prevalent are these scams?
What I would say is, I think COVID has caused quite a few of the fraudsters to shut down. So we have not seen a lot of them within the last few years, but every now and then you would see a pattern. So someone would, maybe they were in the supermarket with an elderly person, but they overheard a conversation. Or you may live in the neighborhood and you know that this person has a cousin called Pam. And all of a sudden you pick up the phone and you call the elderly customer because you know the information. You said, hi, this is Pam, your cousin. I'm missing, someone stole some money from me and I'm really in a hard position. Can you help me? Could you meet me, someplace and give me the money or whatever? And, you might say, well, I don't have it. I may have to go to the bank. And you might say, well, I'm going to come and take you to the bank. Right? And you have those persons who are bold enough to do that. They take them to the bank and they're outside waiting on them for when they come out. And, they go and they would take the money because now it also comes to a place now, again, of you having that person under duress. Right? And they may even go a little further to say, but Pam couldn't come, but she sent to me. And again, the elderly person not really thinking about it. they go and they withdraw the funds and they give to the person. So what we try to do again is to talk to our customers when they come in and try to understand again, as we said when we started, their patterns. How come I'm seeing you all of a sudden? What are you doing in here? How come you're doing this? And sometimes those little things, they save them from losing their hard-earned money. You would have heard also about the Nigerian scams and those different things as well, very, very prevalent. And certainly for us in the age now of digital, where we are pushing that strategy, a lot of the scams now occur over the internet. And one of the things we try also to encourage our customers to do, and we tell them, look, we would never send you a link. Right? The bank never sends out links for you to do anything. So if you happen to see a link come into your email and it purports to be from us, it is not from us. So don't click. That is the only way the person gets the access, is when you start to click that link. Once you click that link and you go in, you open up to giving them all your information. So, as a responsible bank, the communication to our clients have to be constant now in the digital world that we're in. That's where we're heading. And I know that our elderly, I know a lot of them, they are very uncomfortable. One of the things that I would say that we started last year, we worked in conjunction with the National Library here, where we started to do some training, helping them to actually navigate the internet. And I found that quite a few persons came on board with that. And it is something that we're looking to do again this year, just to help them transition into this place that we are at. And in doing that, that's where we also try to educate them around the different scams, the things to look for, when you open yourself, particularly to the digital world.
Now, I know that you mentioned the bank has, invested in training for your customer service reps and officers, making them more observant in terms of what to look for when these elderly persons come in, and they might be under duress, as you said. However, from where you sit, how concerned are you when it comes to financial abuse against the elderly?
I would say that I am indeed, I'm concerned, but I am not concerned to the fact where I would say that, we can't do anything about it. We know that there are things that we can do to address it and to help the elderly, navigate what's happening. It's to be alert. It's for our people to be present in whatever they do, so always when the customer comes in front of you, look at them, understand what they're doing. In our branches, we have officers called digital banking officers. Those are the persons who they walk the floor and they try to understand what the customers are doing and, to try to help them also navigate the whole the internet and and those kinds of transactions, doing the things via the ATM. We know that's also another area for the seniors where using the ATM, I'm not using this ATM, and they get all scared and everything. So trying to hold their hands to see, you see this machine? It is just as the machine, and it does the very same thing that the CSR does when you come to them. It even talks to you. It may not have the type of conversation that you want to have, but they talk to you. And our ABMs now, we have smart ABMs now almost in all of our branches. And sometimes you have persons that come in and they say, look, I need instant access to my cash. That's why I'm in the line. So we're able to say, you don't need to do this anymore. You can go to the machine and you put your cash on there and you have instant access. So it's those little things that, we find that will help, certainly not just the elderly, but customers in general. So, yes, I'm concerned, but I know that, there are ways that we can help them through the instances that might happen through financial abuse.
Well, Ms. Whitelaw, we really appreciate all that you're doing at the bank, you and your team, to help protect and fight financial abuse against the elderly. I appreciate you talking to us today.
You're most welcome, Lisa, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. That was Ms. Michelle Whitelaw, the Director of Retail Banking Channels at CIBC First Caribbean International Bank. I'm Lisa Lord. This was One on One. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a wonderful evening.